Welcome to the Flower Prophecies, a podcast exploring all things flower essences and remedies and flower therapy, and how this vibrational plant medicine has the potential to heal and shift our individual and collective health and consciousness. We'll be diving deep into the specifics of individual essences, nature's energetics, emotional healing and growth, as well as hearing client case studies, hosting special guests and professionals, and I'll be sharing my own personal explorations and philosophies channeled straight from the flowers. Through my own unearthing, I have discovered what I believe to be the most profound teaching of the flowers, and I now wish to share with you the practice of alchemizing fear into beauty. So welcome back to the Flower Prophecies. This week we have Danielle Sawan, known as Plant Spirit Empress. She is a writer, an intuitive herbalist, a student and a teacher of the plants. Danielle has spent years exploring the traditional rituals and plant devotion across the earth. Her work with the natural world is now deeply intertwined with the feminine, birth, death, voice, music, ceremony, ritual, and magic. Danielle, welcome to the Flower Prophecies. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's such an honor.
Beautiful. So I would love to hear from you a little bit about your journey. How did you find yourself immersed within the world of flowers and plants and healing with them?
Yeah, so it's always hard for me to think back and answer this question, but I feel like this is a gift that I came into the world with. And it wasn't until I really had the freedom to travel on my own, which was after graduating in 2016. I was living in San Diego, and then I had studied abroad in Spain, and I just felt like this gypsy part of me that loved to work with herbs come back. And I found a tea shop and I started making blends. And I feel like because I grew up in a Western society in the US and California, and there's just so much expectations and pressures put on you, I probably would have started working with plants earlier. But when I had that freedom to explore and be who I really truly was in that time, they just started to come naturally and speak through me and speak to me and show up. And I started finding books, and yeah, it's just kind of those little breadcrumbs that pop up in your universe and the synchronicities that are hard to ignore, and the pure joy and passion that flowers and plants bring for me, and how I could just go into a tea shop and start studying the little descriptions and stay in there and then make my own blend. It came really natural to me as an intuitive and an empath. So yeah, when I work with plants, it's usually through intuition, and I don't hesitate. I really trust when I'm making medicines, and understanding also the medicinal parts of each plant. I do study that, but it's also there's also this intuitive rhythm to it. Yeah,
definitely. Did you grow up sort of connected in any way to the plants? Is your family sort of work, or are they connected to the natural world?
Yeah, in a way, I would say my parents have always had a beautiful garden. I'm actually in their backyard right now, and there's a lot of roses. We have a lemon tree. There's lavender and rosemary, but I feel like the way that they're connected is not the way that I'm connected. I think they're more connected, because it's nice to have a garden. It's pleasant. It brings pleasure. And for me, rose and lavender and rosemary are big allies and even shamanic teachers in the plant world.
Yeah.
So it's almost here people have gardens and it's a beautiful thing, but then those that work with the deeper intuitive realms and spirit realms, it's there's a deeper layer, and you can hear the plants speaking and talking. So it's interesting. It's living in different realities, but in the same physical space.
Yeah. And it is funny, isn't it? Because it's so many people are connected to gardens for their beauty and for, the feeling and the joy and the pleasure, like you say, that it brings you. But it's obvious that, I mean, when you really think about it and look deeper into it, they're clearly doing something on a different level for those people. So it's like really interesting because a lot of the time people are very unconscious to it, even though they're very connected to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like my neighbor, I just noticed they have a ginkgo biloba tree. And I never noticed it when I was younger, but like I don't know, I just was like meditating, and then I looked up, and then I like saw the shape of the leaves, and I felt the plant like saying notice me. And I'm just like almost 90% sure they don't know they have a wealth of medicine in their backyard, and if they would use it, like maybe to them it's just a tree.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting.
So you have explored medicine through many different countries and locations. Could you share a little of, I guess, the common and uncommon threads in this work between all of the different lands you have traversed?
Yeah. So I would say most of my studies have been in Central and South America. I've also lived in Thailand, where the ancestry on my father's side is from, and I was studying with an herbalist. And in Thailand, there were all these like really strong jungle herbs, like a lot of anti-cancer and like blood cleaning. Um, and then in Central and South America, there's a lot of plants and herbs that they use daily in like their food or their culture, or just having like in the restaurants, you'll see a lot of ruta like in a vase, and in front of shops, like as a protection herb. And then in the different therapies that I've worked with, which have been a lot of like midwife inspired and womb therapies, it's just, yeah, I would just say there's like different types of plants and herbs. Trying to think of a good example. Like I would say there's this thread in Thailand, like they also have sauna and steam rooms, and there's usually herbs like lemongrass, which is also traditionally found in cooking.
Yeah.
And then in like Mexico, they're using a lot of rosemary, basil, and ruda. So it's the same kind of, shamanic also clearing with herbs, but then just different type of plants that are native. In Thailand, I feel like in like Central and South America, it is more kind of commonly known as like a more shamanic practice. And then in Thailand, it's just kind of like the herbs are in there to help open up certain pores in the body and steam and smell. And I wouldn't say it's as shamanic led.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. Do you feel, is there a specific land that you have kind of lived and worked on that you feel more connected to than others?
Yeah, I love South America. I feel like my soul, like my true soul, is really from there. I would say Peru. I was working a lot with coca leaves, just eating coca every day. In Peru, they have different rituals with the coca leaves, where they have a really beautiful like fabric that they keep the leaves in, and then they make offerings to the land. They also do divination readings. Coca is, pretty much one of the main offerings in Peru, whereas also in other places, tobacco is an offering, in places in Central and South America, but also in like Native American rituals. And yeah.
And when you like travel to these places, are you just guided to those you're meant to learn from, or how does that unfold for you?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm very guided by spirit. I work a lot in my dream realm, so I also like listen to that. For instance, I can provide an example. When I was in Guatemala, I was really, really called to this place called Lake Atitlan, which maybe some of you have heard of. Um, it's basically there's like little towns that are surrounded by a lake, and you have to take a motorboat to get from town to town. And most people, like foreigners, live in San Marcos, and there's three volcanoes surrounding the lake, so it has a very powerful energy. And when I went there, I wasn't sure what what my journey would be there, but I started having a lot of dreams about supporting women giving birth. And I remember one time there was this woman squatting and like giving birth, and I was like to catch the baby, and I was placing rose petals at her feet. And I remember I woke up with just so much emotion, and I started crying. And then I went to this I just walked into the shop in town, this local Guatemalan man who makes drums and rattles, really beautiful, like shamanic tools. And I don't know, I remember talking to him, and I was telling him about my dream, and I just started crying. And I guess he does, I found out later he does do readings. And he was like, "You've had a past life here as midwife." I was like, "Oh, yeah." And then I joined a Mayan abdominal massage course, with midwives, with local Mayan midwives, which also utilizes a lot of herbs and all the practices, and in Temazcal. So I felt like that journey was really for me to retrieve, this remembrance, because that kind of started my path, because I always had worked with herbs, but I knew there was like one part also missing, like one deeper layer, and that's been unfolding this work with birth and studying and midwifery and being a birth keeper. So that was like Guatemala. I'm actually wearing this dress that I bought in Guatemala. It's like all red. So I really feel that energy of the blood today.
I love that. That's beautiful. And so how is that work unfolding for you now? Are you still in the studying realm of it, or are you practicing in that field now?
Yeah, I would say I'm still studying. I recently lived in Brazil, and I knew that when my time was right, like I would meet my teacher, because I had been calling in studying midwifery. I was really attracted to Mexico because they do a lot of beautiful postpartum rituals, the closing of the bone ceremony, which they also do in Guatemala. Um, and I met this Brazilian midwife witch, and she was the one who was really guiding us through like these feminine rituals with so many plants of like rites of passage and closing ceremonies, and also honoring the earth. And she's very influenced by Peru and Mexico as well. So I just felt like I was meeting an older version of me, like in 30 years.
That's beautiful.
And yeah, she was a midwife attending a lot of births. I unfortunately didn't get to attend a birth this time, but I feel like the spirits of babies really close to me, and like this path with women. So yeah, I know that it's just right now I'm integrating a lot of information in my womb in these codes, and that it's going to continue to unfold, and even my own journey when I'm ready to be a mother. So yeah, it's great to have this wisdom of birth, and just also have the knowledge of what rituals are needed. So for example, we were really supporting each other in circles of women, honoring like life as well as death. So like honoring those who have had abortions or pregnancy loss, and like working with roses, and like just holding space, like circling in with women. And even it's so simple, being in silence or just making like a sound with our voices. That was really beautiful. And I feel like that's something that's lost in Western culture, is just these ritualizations of really important moments or transitions in someone's life.
And can you sort of speak to like what these rituals and practices offer women in these transitory times?
What they offer?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like, well, like for example, like if someone is becoming a mother, like there's that death of the maiden self, there's that death of yeah, like an old self that you have to let go of. And I feel like I've around the world, I've seen many beautiful ceremonies of like mother blessings for that woman, where I guess you have your friends or like, you know, women that are close to you come and like bless your womb, place water on you, offer flowers, like an altar around you and for your body. And I feel like that's like this community village support that just like helps integrate the transition and those feelings of like loneliness and desperation and feeling scared and fear, because a lot of there's a lot of moments in our culture that can bring like maybe shock and like soul loss, or like even like for me moving like to another, like moving back to for the moment, moving back to the West has been like a really hard transition. And like I definitely feel like my soul is like kind of shocked to be back in this culture and this vibration. So like I do actually feel like I have an element of soul loss. So I'm like trying to work with plants and shamanic journeying to kind of bring that, to like reintegrate that part, because there was a part of me that felt so safe in like Central and South America, and here like I don't feel as safe to be who I am, and I feel like there's this element of like camouflage. Yeah.
Are you working with any plant allies in particular to help you integrate that transition?
Yeah, so I actually I woke up and I wanted to share this because yesterday, well, in the past, I've actually had datura come in my field, and I had a flower essence for datura or angel's trumpet, brugmansia. But that was more for like grief and transitions, and like big deaths. And I also have been living a big death, but I think in that moment, that was the flower that I needed. Right now, rose has been coming to me just because all the roses are in bloom and it's summer here. And rose has really been speaking through me. I feel like I've been feeling like a lot of anger and a lot of grief and just more difficult feelings. And rose has been like a reminder, like to come back to compassion, to forgive myself, to forgive my mother, to be softer. And then also the thorns, yeah, have just been like reminding me of my boundaries and anger. I've seen like rose everywhere, from like physical roses to seeing like a rose street, like in every different place that I go.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I'd love to know, so you work with all sort of plant medicine, herbs and flower essences. Is there any sort of particular ceremony or ritual or just times in general that you opt for flower essences specifically, or is it kind of just always intuitively led when you work with that particular medicine?
Yeah. I really love flower essences. I feel like this is actually something that I need to explore deeper, like in my own making of essences. Right now I'm drinking cacao, and then I was thinking of the beautiful cacao flower when I was in Brazil. But I just didn't take the time to make an essence of cacao. But I really love working with water. Like I have a very water spirit, and like working with rivers and living near pure water sources.
Yeah.
For me, I feel like I work, more with like when I'm doing rituals, it's more like the physical plants and roots and barks. And something that I always do when I'm leaving a land or when I'm entering a new land is I give an offering to the earth. So in Brazil, like I gave a really big offering, like just for thanking that chapter and everything that I learned of, a lot of different flowers and dried herbs, and even crystals and like jewelry pieces that felt important to me. But yeah, essences, I feel like they're supportive in the more subtle ways. And yeah, this would just come, like if a flower essence comes through to me, like I would just start working with it. In like these big transitions and like with group rituals. Yeah, I find I like to work with like the physical flower. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So I love also speaking of when a flower comes to you, I love getting everyone's individual take on how the flowers speak through and to them. And I'd love to hear a bit more about your experience with that and how that sort of the transmission sort of flows through for you.
Yeah. So definitely I receive a lot through my dreams. There was this one time when I was living in Peru and I had a beautiful garden by my house and there was this huge bush by my gate, but I never really looked at it, even though I was entering and leaving each morning. And one time I had a dream of like a family member whispering something in my ear. And then I saw honeysuckle and I was like, wow, I really need to connect with honeysuckle. Like this very Venusian, feminine, sweet smelling flower. And then like the next day I woke up and went out and I saw like the bush was full of honeysuckles. So I could have made an essence, but I was really called to make an infused sun oil with it. And I still have like oils with honeysuckle and lang lang. So plants come in my dreams. Like yesterday, I was doing a shamanic journey with one of the practices from one of my teachers. And it's been a while. So sometimes you forget that when you actually put your attention to doing a practice, like the power that comes back to you. Also like the ancestors, your animal guides, listen. And when I was dreaming, I saw like this mushroom, which I knew was Amanita muscaria, the fly agaric, or like, the red and white mushroom. And it was dried, but I was eating it in my dream. And I had seen a tincture or a flower essence in a shop in Oakland a few weeks ago. And I was really called, but I wasn't sure I was like ready to work with this spirit. But yeah, this mushroom came in my dream last night and I felt that this is actually the piece that's going to help me integrate and work with like the soul loss. So I'm just like deeply listening. Like I would have loved to maybe work with flowers or something softer, but for some reason this mushroom came in my field and apparently I'm ready to work with it in my own journeying, like microdosing. Yeah, it's definitely like dreams or like repeatedly seeing or feeling called or feeling drawn to this flower or plant being.
Beautiful. Yeah. I love that. Actually, I wanted to ask you, it just came up in my mind when I was first in contact with you and you shared that there was a particular flower I had a photo of on my page. I don't actually know the Latin name for it, but here it's called glory bush. It's the purple. Do you remember?
Yeah, I would love to know what that one connects to.
Well, so for me, it was coming through as this reminder, almost a little bit like what you were just speaking to, of like when we do the ritual and we remember our connection, our deeper connection, it all kind of comes flooding back. It's always almost like this reminder that we have that connection always there with us, like, and we're always guided, and to not forget it. So it's really interesting that you actually just mentioned that sort of element as well. I'd love to hear your little story with it. You shared that you had a special connection to it.
Yeah, so in Brazil, this tree, it's a tree, right? With like a bunch of birds. Yeah, I think it's the same family. So the valley that I was living in, I remember all my friends telling me, oh, if you're here in March or April, like the whole valley is going to be covered with these purple trees and flowers. And I just so happened to be there in that time. And I remember when I started to notice the quaresma, and it's like this vibrant, like deep purple, you know, like this electric purple.
It's such a beautiful color.
Yeah, every time I felt so drawn to her and like feeling her energy. And I felt this energy of like the phoenix, like the flame reborn. And at this time, when I started connecting with this tree, I didn't know that I would be leaving Brazil so soon. It's a bit more of a personal story, but maybe one day I'll share it with like my intimate circles. But this tree like kept giving me this reminder of like this regeneration and this like death and rebirth. And I remember like the last day I was in Brazil, I was actually like standing under, and I wanted to receive the energy. And I just felt like so much this protection, like this violet flame and this power. And I felt her speaking to me and like telling me how powerful I am and other things that I don't remember right now. But it was like, yeah, I just felt this like raw feminine power and like being kind of the brightest star that you can be. And I'm not sure like if it's still blooming in Brazil, but it's kind of temporary, you know, but it's such a mark on everyone that they're all like, okay, this valley's covered in purple in March. And it's like kind of this like once a year blooming thing.
Reminder of power. Yeah, beautiful. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Thank you. So I'd love to ask you, you shared with me that you have explored Shipibo, plant dieta in the Amazon. Could you firstly share what that is and consists of, and secondly, your sort of personal experience that you'd like to share with it?
Yeah, definitely. So I've always before I entered in a plant dieta, like I was really feeling the lands of Peru calling me, and the Shipibo tradition, where they work with a lot of different like plant medicines, including ayahuasca, the grandmother plant medicine, and opposed to other tribes and cultures that work with the medicine, like they do a lot of work kind of in the dark. So when you are in ceremony with them, it's completely dark in the night, like they're chanting and singing their Icaros, but it's really like this kind of internal cocoon ceremony. And a plant dieta is mainly, it's usually 2 weeks to 1 month, and you're living in this kind of bungalow in the jungle with no electricity. In my case, I think that there was no running water. We were taking baths in the river, and you're really in isolation, and you commit to being in silence. There's usually other participants, but you're not interacting these 2 weeks. And the dieta is the diet. So you're cutting out sugar and meat and salt. You just eat pretty bland. Like I was eating these plantains that they cooked over the fire, and sometimes a little bit of rice and lentils, and they provide the meals for you. The most challenging part, I think, for anyone is just like that feeling of like disconnection when you're actually going into deep connection with nature and yourself, and just that fact of not talking. And some people even do a day of water fasting or like coconut water fasting. And it's really like just stripping everything down to the bare basics. And you just hear the sounds of the jungle. It's super loud, the frogs or the geckos, and you're, in the dark and there's no electricity, so you're using candles. Like for me, I really loved it because I like to be in isolation. It's just part of my nature. Mm-hmm. And then the maestros or the maestra, they usually choose, well, in my case, like I went with a really, really traditional Shipibo family. So like they chose the plant for you to work with. And I worked with this plant called Taintirao. And it just really works on the mind and like clearing the mind and some patterns in the mind, like deep rooted patterns. And there's a lot of other plants that people work with, like Bobinsana. I've heard a lot of people working with Bobinsana. I haven't worked with her yet. I have like really deep respect for these traditions, and my maestros that I was working with, like they say to start with the small plants first, dieting the small plants, and then go up to the trees. But unfortunately in Peru, it's been really commercialized, and it's really easy to find like these dietas and then start with the master plants, which I haven't done. It just hasn't been my path. But and basically, like during the dieta, I think, it's once in the evening, you're just drinking a very concentrated amount of the plant that was chosen, and it starts to work through your dreams. And there are some ayahuasca ceremonies sprinkled in throughout the 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. It goes a lot faster when you start to have those ceremonies. So we didn't have our first ceremony until after a week. And that week was just felt really slow. Yeah.
Yeah. And what did the experience bring up for you that you'd like to share, if anything?
Yeah, for me, I feel a lot of these dietas bring us back to our creativity. So I brought my guitar and I was songwriting. You can also paint, write, just like express. Mm. I felt it was really, for me, like the most beautiful time of my life. Like, I'm always wanting to go back, but I also remember that it's not easy, the 2 weeks, and, how much I was like wanting it to end, but then you receive so many rewards from communing so deeply to the plants, and you're basically offering your body to the plant spirits to work through you, and like stripping food and like comfort so that you can do this deep work, and the plants are really, really happy like to work with you, and that you're offering yourself to them, but in the way that's like symbiotic, and it's like reciprocated because they're giving you so many gifts. And I just feel like my voice opened a lot during that time, like musically. And I feel like we all have so many gifts that are hidden within us that they don't come out at certain times. Like I know I've always had this gift with like painting and liking to paint, but I don't really give myself the time and space to explore this. So what just came to me now is I feel like I would want to work with rose or another plant in an essence, and also do this type of dieta-like style where I'm like not using communication so much or using the internet and eating really bland.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to find these supportive spaces. It's really easy when you're in isolation in the jungle and having these shamanic teachers holding space for you. But I feel like I would want to do something like that again, like self-led or with a group of people.
That's beautiful. I'm sure it's an amazing experience. Yeah. So, do you have any stories or experiences in particular when working with flower essences that come to mind that you'd like to share?
Yeah. I'm thinking back to one of the times when I was living in South France, and I was living with my partner at this time by a river. And I remember I made this like rosemary and blue cornflower essence. And I remember calling that essence Remembrance. And for me, it was really connecting to the grandmothers and like connecting to the grandmother on my mother's side that I never met. And I always feel rosemary as a plant that's like ancient grandmother teacher. So when I was taking that essence, I just started having dreams and like feeling this grandmother spirit around me. So it was a way to kind of commune with my grandmother in the form of a plant and just feel like more close and connected. So that was actually like one of the last times I made my own flower essence. I feel like I should be making more like as a flower fairy and like always loving to be around flowers. Yeah.
All in the right time though.
Yeah.
On timing for sure. For sure. But maybe it's time for the rose flower essence.
Yeah, definitely. The roses are full and staring at me.
I love it. I love it. So I'd love for you to share where you see or would like to see the future of flower and plant medicine going.
Yeah. I feel like flower and plant medicine are like this ancient future. I feel that plants hold all of these technologies, like of the future, even more than AI.
Yes, absolutely.
So I feel like we're returning back to this, and like plants have so many keys for us to unlock in our own mind, especially those master plants. Like they have this like super ancient, very deep past, but they also hold all the answers to the future. And I can definitely see why like whoever is controlling whatever like wouldn't want us to be in communion with these plants and these rituals and this knowledge and this understanding, because it's literally a key.
Absolutely.
I would really love to see more people like sharing their medicines. I would also like to have my own apothecary soon once I'm more rooted, and sharing my medicines, and more people having their own gardens so we can have like organic homegrown suppliers and like kind of exchange medicines and support each other. I feel like maybe the reason why people shy away from working with plants and tinctures is because like if you go into Whole Foods, it's really expensive. Like it's kind of not like a community. It's just not communal anymore. It's been really commodity. It's become like a commodity. And sometimes you don't even know like how ethical the practices are with the flowers and the herbs. So there's always this kind of disconnection. But I would love for more people to be sharing their work and their medicines, and like you make your own flower essences, and how can we connect with more people, I guess, by speaking about it and sharing our passions. It's kind of like slow burning, but I feel it'll be sustainable in the long run.
I agree, for sure. Yeah, I think there'll come a time where it kind of people wake up to how powerful they are, for sure. And kind of my take on, like you say, that there's so much more technology within the plants than there is, say, AI. It's like AI I see as like, it's kind of like that shadow aspect that's pushing us into finding, this natural technology. It's like we can rely on that and sort of fall into that being our normal, and that being our pattern, or we can use it to wake up and realize that there's deeper technology within the natural world that has so much more to offer. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I feel like I've been living in a bubble, living in these places where the practices are so woven into the culture. And then I come to the Bay Area, like San Francisco, which is so interwoven with tech and AI and like infertility clinics. And it's just like I can really see the changes of like what society is pushing onto our culture now. And I'm just like, this is wrong. Like it's just really hard for me to stay silent. But I also feel like people need to find their own path, and that like those that are ready, they'll come to me and ask. I can't be forcing ideas onto people because that's a waste of my own energy. And those that have a higher consciousness, they will seek the plants or they will be open. And those that want to stay in the lower vibrations and still rely on pharmaceuticals and not take care of their own health and think that you need doctors for everything, then they will stay in that fear and vibration and not being in sovereignty. So it's just hard for me to be here and like witness like a lot of friends and family and people living in that lower density mindset. But it's just like I feel like this is a spiritual test, like just as much as being in a dieta in the Amazon. Like this is also kind of a dieta for me.
For sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Is there anything else that you'd love to share with the audience today?
No, I mean, I'm really excited that you're based in Australia, because Australia is one of the continents I haven't explored, and I'm really like interested in like the indigenous dream time and the practices. I feel like another part of my role is being a grid worker on the planet. So I'm also called to these places to like seed prayers and light and work with herbs and rituals and like bring back everything that I've learned here. And I'm just like it's kind of like this serpent journey that I'm going around all the time, but there's this purpose, like this grid working purpose. And I would love to come to Australia. So I'm just going to plant the seed if anyone would connect or host or collaborate. I would love to. I feel like I need like an invitation to come to Australia because it seems so big and huge and far. And I don't feel I can navigate Australia alone.
Yeah, it's a big place. It's a big place, that's for sure. Are you drawn to anywhere in Australia in particular?
I don't know. I do want to go to Uluru.
Yes.
Yeah, that might like.
Yes.
But other than that, I haven't really done the research. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it'll unfold, and like you say, maybe the right connection is going to pop up through this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you so
beautiful.
much.
I mean, I'm down for it if you ever travel over. I'd love to have you here.
Brisbane, right?
Yeah, so I'm close to Brisbane. I'm a couple of hours away from it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Beautiful. This has been so beautiful to hear your experience, and I just think it's so amazing, like how, like you say, you're a grid worker, how traveled and how you explore these modalities and these rituals through all of the lands that you kind of travel to, and it's really inspiring to hear something myself I haven't done is much traveling, the world and exploring this. And it's definitely an inspiration for me to sort of seek out those different cultural experiences and practices and learn from the lands that others have sort of lived on and from. So thank you for sharing everything. It's beautiful. And if anyone would like to find you and what you have to offer, where can they do so?
Yeah, right now, it would be through my Instagram, Plant Spirit Empress, as you said. I'm in the process of creating some new containers and offerings. So birthing some new offerings. So you can always stay in touch through there and send me a message if you enjoyed or have any questions. I always reply to people. I love speaking about this. So,
beautiful. Yeah. Thank you, Danielle, and thank you everyone for listening in, and we will be back next week. Thank you so much.